I used to believe that life settled into shape on its own, like water poured into a vessel, finding its space, adjusting to its boundaries, resting wherever it could. For most of my adult life, that's exactly how things felt. Not perfect, not extraordinary, not thrilling or magical, just steady, predictable, familiar in a way that felt safe. And I thought that safety was enough. My name is Maya. I'm 37 years old, and for more than a decade I lived inside a rhythm that felt almost pre-written. A rhythm that belonged to a marriage I thought was stable, maybe even unshakable, even if it wasn't particularly vibrant. I never expected my life to twist the way it did, to slip into a quiet kind of breaking that didn't roar like a storm but crept in like fog, soft and slow, until I couldn't see anything clearly anymore. If you had asked me years ago what my life felt like, I would have said it was peaceful, comfortable, a little dull, maybe, but warm in its own way. But now, looking back, I can see the truth. Comfort can be a kind of blindness, a soft blanket thrown over cracks we don't want to see. And when the blanket finally slips, when the truth starts to show through, it can feel like stepping into cold air with nothing to cover yourself. But all stories begin somewhere, and mine begins with a shift I didn't recognize at the time. A shift so subtle I missed it altogether. It started with silence, not an angry silence, not the kind that holds tension in its teeth. No, this silence was different, gentle, almost kind, a silence that settled gradually, the way dust does on untouched shelves. I didn't question it. I simply lived around it. I spoke into it, cooked in it, folded laundry in it, watched it drift through the rooms like something harmless. I never wondered what it meant. I never wondered what it was hiding. For 11 years, my husband and I lived in a quiet, orderly world. A world built from routines, morning alarms, coffee cups, commutes, household chores, the occasional weekend outing, the same dinners prepared in the same order. If anyone had asked, I would have said we were fine. Not passionate, not adventurous, but fine. And I thought, fine was enough to keep two people together. But the truth is, life doesn't fall apart all at once. It unravels in threads. I don't know exactly when the first thread loosened. Maybe it was on a Tuesday morning, when he left a little earlier than usual. Maybe it was during one of those evenings when we sat on opposite ends of the couch, bodies only inches apart but entire worlds away. Maybe it was the moment I realized I didn't remember the last time he laughed with his whole chest, the way he used to when we were young. Or maybe it happened long before that. Maybe the unraveling began years earlier, so slowly neither of us noticed until the ends were frayed, and the fabric of us was thin enough to tear. But before everything slipped, there were still days that felt ordinary, days where nothing seemed wrong at all. I would wake up early, the way I always did. I liked the stillness of morning, the quiet space before the day began, when the air felt cool, and the world hadn't asked anything of me yet. I'd brew coffee, sometimes humming to myself, sometimes lost in thoughts I couldn't name. My husband would come downstairs eventually, walking with the tired heaviness of someone already thinking about work. I'd ask how he slept. He'd say, fine, and that was enough. Or so I thought. It's strange how easy it is to ignore the spaces between words until those spaces become too large to overlook. The mornings began to shift first. He stopped lingering in the kitchen. He stopped glancing at me when I spoke. He stopped smiling the way he once did, even the small, automatic smile he used to give when our eyes met. Instead, there was a distractedness about him, a distance sliding quietly into place. I told myself it was stress, work pressures, normal adult exhaustion, and maybe in some ways it was. But I also know now that explanations can be convenient, that sometimes the excuses we make for others are just a gentler way of avoiding the truth. The days went on, each one resembling the last. Time moved, unkind in its consistency, and I moved with it, unaware of how much was shifting beneath the surface. Looking back, I think the first real sign came from within myself, a kind of internal restlessness I couldn't name. It wasn't dramatic. It was more like a quiet ache, a hollowing I didn't quite understand. Something in me was reaching out, maybe for connection, maybe for clarity, maybe for something I couldn't put into words. But instead of exploring it, I tucked it away, convinced it didn't matter. Because in a stable marriage, you don't expect anything to crack. But cracks don't ask for permission. They simply appear. As weeks passed, the silence between us grew, not loud, not confrontational, just present. It stretched across rooms, across car rides, across evenings when we sat side by side watching television without actually watching anything at all. And every time I tried to reach through it, my hand seemed to fall short. I began to feel like I was living next to him, instead of with him, like we were two separate worlds orbiting the same space without ever touching. But life has a way of bringing truth into focus, even when you've spent years avoiding it. And for me, that moment came in the softest, strangest way. It was a Sunday afternoon, one of those quiet ones, where time feels slow. I had been cleaning the living room, moving books, rearranging small things, trying to busy myself with tasks that didn't actually need doing. There was a kind of energy inside me that day, unsettled, uncertain. I couldn't place it. He had left earlier, saying he needed to run errands. Something about the way he said it felt off, but I told myself not to overthink. I had become good at telling myself that. When he returned later that evening, there was nothing unusual in his expression, nothing that suggested my world was about to tilt, but something lingered in the air, an invisible shift I couldn't name. He moved around the house quietly, almost cautiously, and I felt something tighten in my chest, a heaviness I couldn't explain. That night, after he went to bed, I stayed awake long after the house had gone silent. I sat in the living room, surrounded by shadows and the soft hum of the house settling, and for the first time in years I let myself feel the full weight of the loneliness I had been carrying. It felt like an ocean inside me, deep, endless, quiet. And somewhere in the middle of that quiet, a single thought surfaced: something is wrong. I didn't know what. I didn't know why. But I knew it in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. And the thing about truths is this: once they rise, they don't sink back down. Not for long. The next few weeks blurred together, a mix of normalcy and unease, daily tasks and strange tension, familiar routines and the growing feeling that something had shifted in ways I didn't yet understand. He was present, but not really there. He was polite, but distant. He was functional, but absent in the ways that mattered. And I tried not to worry. I told myself marriages go through phases, that people change, that maybe we were simply entering a new season of life, something quieter, something settled. But deep down, I think I knew. The truth arrived not in a dramatic revelation, not in a confrontation, not in a moment designed to break me. It came softly, in a whisper of realization that slipped under my skin before I could stop it. I remember standing in the kitchen one afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling across the floor in warm, golden lines. I was washing dishes, my hands moving automatically, my mind far elsewhere. And then, almost suddenly, it was as if the world shifted into sharp focus. I thought about the silence, the distance, the way he had stopped reaching for me in small, unspoken ways, the way I had learned to swallow my questions, the way my heart felt heavy even on calm days. And the truth settled into my chest with a clarity that took my breath away. We weren't okay. We hadn't been okay for a long time. And whatever had caused it, whatever had changed between us, was bigger than simple exhaustion or distraction. Something had been lost. Something had slipped out of reach. For the first time, I let myself acknowledge it. And that acknowledgement opened a floodgate I wasn't ready for. In the days that followed, I began noticing everything I had been blind to, the details that told a story I hadn't wanted to read. The way he guarded his phone, the way he always seemed to be thinking about something far from home, the subtle guilt in his eyes that appeared and disappeared too quickly to be caught unless you were looking for it. And I was looking now. I didn't go searching through his things. I didn't spy. I didn't investigate. Something inside me refused to grasp for proof I already felt in my bones. I didn't need evidence to know the landscape of my marriage had shifted into something unfamiliar. Sometimes, your body recognizes pain before your mind accepts it. Sometimes, your heart knows it's been broken before the pieces fall. And sometimes, the truth sits quietly between two people long before either one speaks it aloud. I don't know exactly when the infidelity began. I don't know how long he had been living in two worlds, one with me, one with someone else. I don't know what drew him away, or why he didn't turn back sooner. Those details never mattered to me as much as the truth itself. What mattered was the realization that the person I had built a life with had stepped outside the boundaries of us. That he had carried secrets in the quiet spaces of our home. That he had allowed something sacred to be replaced by something hidden. But more than that, I had to face a truth that was even harder. I had lost myself long before he lost us. I had become quiet, small, diminished in ways I didn't recognize until it was too late. I had loved him, yes, but I had also disappeared into the background of my own life. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Healing didn't come suddenly. It didn't arrive like a revelation or a surge of strength. It came slowly, the way dawn creeps across a sky, soft and patient. It came in small realizations, that I still existed outside my marriage, that my story didn't end in the moment his loyalty broke, that I could reclaim the parts of me I had abandoned. I didn't confront him with fire. I didn't crumble. I didn't explode in anger or drown in tears. Instead, I felt a deep, heavy sadness, a sadness so quiet it almost felt graceful. A sadness that came from understanding that the world we had built together wasn't the world we lived in anymore. And as strange as it sounds, that realization brought a kind of peace, a painful peace, but peace nonetheless. In the months that followed, I learned how to breathe differently, how to anchor myself in my own life again, how to let go of the version of love I had clung to, and how to accept the truth of what had been broken. I learned that heartbreak doesn't always look like devastation. Sometimes it looks like clarity. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Sometimes it feels like stepping out of a long, dimly lit room into the brightness of a world you forgot you were allowed to inhabit. I learned that healing isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's a series of small steps taken in the dark. It's choosing yourself even when it's hard. It's understanding that closure doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from acceptance. And I learned that I could move forward, not quickly, not perfectly, but genuinely. I tell this story not because infidelity defines who I am, and not because the wound still bleeds, but because it shaped me in ways I never expected. It forced me to see myself again, to step out of silence, to grow in the empty spaces, to reclaim the voice I had forgotten. And now, as I stand on the other side of everything that broke, I understand something that once felt impossible. Losing what I thought was my whole world didn't ruin me. It revealed me, the woman I am now, stronger, clearer, softer in the right ways and fiercer in others, came from the ashes of a life I no longer mourn. I am not defined by betrayal. I am defined by what I chose to build after it. And for the first time in many years, I am living fully. Not quietly, not halfway, not hidden behind routines or roles or expectations. I am living as myself. And that, more than anything I lost, is what I carry forward.